Hey, everybody. I just did an amazing podcast on how the 7 laws of the universe apply to the situation that we're in with the COVID virus and what is actually different in our world now than was before, but how the laws actually work in our new situation. Watch it, practice it, watch it again, learn it, do it. See you there. Hey, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about how to use the universal laws. I'm going to take you through all 7 universal laws as a way to think during the coronavirus crisis, and kind of give you an idea of between the way things were and the way things are now, so that we have a real clear understanding of how do we use these laws right now when everything that was normal has changed. Because I see a lot of people struggling with the idea of the channels of distribution out of our life and into our life have massively changed. Like, there's no question about that. And when we use these laws, it's almost like we have to retrain ourselves to think not based on the laws, because most of you are beginning a really good understanding by listening to our podcast episodes on how to use these laws, but how do we think about these laws within the framework of the way that it's changed. So that's what I want to kind of go through today. And again, I'm going to go through all 7, and I'm going to do a little diagram for most of them to give you kind of an idea. So the first law is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. And when we talk about this law, we talk about it kind of like water. I very often use the idea of water, because when we have water in a pond, a lake, an ocean, rain, that type of thing, what we really have is the physical manifestation of water. But water also can take other forms. It can freeze, it can be a solid, it can be a liquid, and it can also be a gas. So when water is just sitting on the earth somewhere and it gets heated up, it basically turns into steam, which then turns into a gas, and it goes up into the atmosphere, and it becomes unseen. We don't see it until it starts to collect in mass and begins to cool. And then we see water as like a dark cloud. And as it cools even more, it condenses and it turns back into a physical property, which then obeys the law of gravity, which pulls it down to the earth. So it goes from a physical to a non-physical and back to a physical again. Another way to think about this would be if we looked at nature and we saw the different seasons. So you have a tree in the spring, it gets leaves, it blooms, there's flowers, and then it thrives in the summer. In the fall, it starts to go dormant. It loses its leaves. Those leaves return to the earth. They basically disintegrate. They rot. But when they do that, they actually bring a fertilization process to the soil, which springs new life, and then more things grow. So everything in life is cyclical. What's really important about this law is that we can consciously use it to take an idea in our mind and bring it down into our physical world. But what's different about it right now than before is we automatically make assumptions. Like, our mind is hardwired to the assumption of how we would manifest something in our life, meaning, like, how would it actually get to us? So what's really fascinating is that our whole life is basically set up based on channels of distribution that allow the manifestation of different things to come into our life. So we have the way that we receive money, which can be different for, a lot of people based on how you earn money. We have, how do we get food? How do we get our clothes? How do we meet other people? How do we travel from one place to another? How do we pay our bills? How do we send out our goods and services? And now that the traditional ways of doing this have changed, we have to understand that when we think about this law, it's also very good for us to think about the new channels of distribution that are in place, say via the internet or delivery, to bring us the things that we want. So when we think about this law, we have to understand that all the knowledge that ever was or ever will be is in the same place at the same time. So if we think about, and I'm just going to use letters here, what they represent, use for universe. If we think about the universe, all the knowledge, okay, is in the universe. And we're down here somewhere. I'll even draw a little stick person. Maybe that'll help. Okay, we are actually down here. And what we do is we form an image in our mind of what it is that we actually desire. Now, when we do this, we are taking the information from the universe that is flowing to and through us. And when it's in I'll say non-physical, because actually when we build an image in our mind, we're already starting to go into that physical process of manifesting into our life. But when it's in the universe, it's actually in what's known as a chaotic state. It's random information, and it's just kind of like floating through the universe. So we have that knowledge, we have information, and what we're doing is we are engaging our ability to choose. And as we engage our ability to choose, we build an image of what we want. So we have our needs, we have our desires, we have the things that we want to bring into our life, and we think in images. So we build an image in our mind. We have an image of that. And this is where I think a lot of people are getting confused, because when we build the image, we automatically attach to that image how the thing that we want is going to come to us. So we build that image, and as we build it, that information comes down into our conscious mind, and we then move into the law of vibration, which changes the frequency in which we desire something. Now, why is this important? So now remember, we're talking about the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, okay? It is taking information from a non-form and bringing it into form, into physical manifestation in your life. As we hold this image in our mind of what we desire, we have to really take into consideration the subconscious mind. Because if the subconscious mind is in fear, we attach fear to this image. And if we attach fear to the image, we actually bring down the opposite of the good that we desire from the universe. If we attach, say, gratitude, or we attach something good to the image, we bring something completely different down. We bring down what we truly want. But right now, people are very much in fear because of the situation that's going on. So we have to understand that we need to flip our mind over to gratitude, to good, with the image that we're holding. And as we do that, we will have a feeling subconsciously of expectation. Because what we want is, by gratitude, we're basically saying that we have the faith to expect what we desire to move into our life. Now, what happens is that it begins to show up in our life. But what we have to be on the lookout for is how it's actually coming in. So for a lot of people right now, the main window into the world is their computer or their phone. So it's the internet, okay? The internet it's kind of like the representation of the universe in a way. It's full of random knowledge, but if you go to, say, a search engine, if you put in random information, you're going to get a random answer back. If you put in very specific keywords, you'll get information based on those keywords. So what we want to do is we want to really start to think about how the channels of distribution are in play right now based on the situation that we're in. So that's going to follow a different set of rules. And one of those rules, one of the very first rules that we have to follow that is the same as it was before, is the rule of giving, okay? In order to enact this law to work in a way where it benefits us, we have to understand that in order to receive, we have to give. But it's not just giving of a material thing. When we think a thought, if it's positive, we're giving positive energy to the universe. If it's negative, we're giving negative energy to the universe. If it's confused, we're giving confused energy to the universe. The universe cannot decide for us what to return to us. We have the power to do that. So the more that we're clear, the more that we're clear on our emotional state, the easier it is for what we need to actually come to us. Now, if we're thinking about what we need, and then we think about what do I actually have to give in this situation, what we're really doing is we're keeping our eye open for opportunity. So opportunity is going to come in different forms and different ways than it did before. So we have to expect it to come in different ways. We have to be open to that in our mind. I can't tell you all the different ways that it can come to you right now, but nobody can. Let's put it that way. You have to look at your individual life, the people that you know. So let me just back up for a second, because I think this is important too. Everything in the universe comes from one source. We call that God, we call it spirit, we call the universe. But it comes through things and through people. So basically, everything that you desire is going to come through other people, but they're going to use a different channel of distribution also. And the channel of distribution right now that allows us to communicate is the internet, and all the ways that we can communicate on the internet, and our phone. That's the way that we're communicating currently with the world. So if we understand that, we understand that the opportunity will probably come through those two basic channels in our life. Because, basically we can't travel, we can't go to meetings, we can't go to events, we can't go to like all the different types of social gatherings that we go to. So if you really think about all the different ways that opportunity comes to us in the traditional world that we lived in, it's vast. It's really vast. In the years that I've been helping people build businesses, the supposedly chance encounters where they've met somebody on an airplane that they scored a big deal with, or they were at the pub one night and they met somebody sitting at a bar, or they were at a ball game or a sporting event, or a seminar, or at a bookstore, at a restaurant, like all the different ways that we could run into somebody that would allow that to come into us. We have to realize that that's now been all condensed in one central location, and basically it's our computer. Now, if you look at your computer as a miniature version of the world, you can realize that basically all of these events are still happening in one way or another, or different forms of them, so to speak, but they're happening on the internet. So we have to look for those channels of distribution on the internet in order to see our opportunity. And one of the greatest ways to see our opportunity is to also be thinking about how we can help somebody else. What do we have to give to help somebody else with a problem? And what do we have to give in return for the good that we desire? And we're looking through the phone, we're looking through the internet. It'll be different if you, for whatever reason, have another channel to the outside world that you can communicate with, okay? Like I said, make sure you're looking at your individual situation and how things can come to you and how things can leave from you. So your channels of distribution of getting goods, products, ideas, money, whatever it is, resources out to the world, okay? So the law still works, but it works different because the rules around how it comes in have changed. There's still an abundance. I've gotten a lot of questions about like, well, how the hell does the law of abundance work in a situation like this? It works exactly the same, but it works with different things. We also have to understand, for a lot of people, what was abundant 4 weeks ago may not be relevant today. Okay. It may not be relevant today. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we get down to some of the other laws. So this is the perpetual law of transmutation and how we need to think about it as far as manifesting what we want in our life today. Okay, so let's move on to the next law. And I said a lot about this on the first law, so the other ones should go a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. So the next law is the law of relativity. Now, let me give you an idea about the law of relativity. This is actually very simple, and it's not a law that I usually spend a whole lot of time teaching, because once you show it to somebody, it becomes very obvious. Now, remember, these laws are basically to teach us how to think and stay within the basic truths of more life in the universe. The law of relativity says that nothing has any meaning other than the meaning that you give it. So when we give something meaning, it's usually relative to something else. If you look at this box right here in the middle, this box is neither big nor small until we compare it to something. If I compare it to this box, it's big. If I compare it to this box, it's actually small. But the truth is that this box just is. So whatever meaning I give it is generally that's going to be the purpose that it has in my life. So we have to really think about all the different meanings that we're giving all the new situations and circumstances that are actually happening in our life right now. And there's so many, because the crisis has affected so many different areas of our life. How are we giving things meaning? Now, here's what we don't want, because generally, as we go through our life and we give things meaning, most of those meanings have been taught to us right from when we were just little tykes. We learned how to give things meaning, and meanings are passed on generationally, and they change socially as the needs of the whole begin to change. But we usually adopt and adapt to those new meanings relatively quickly. Right now, in this moment when I'm doing this podcast, and it's important that I say that, because if somebody's listening to this 7 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, the situation may have changed by then. But right now, when we're doing this podcast, there is a tremendous amount of negative meaning being given to almost everything. And as human beings, being in a situation where we're dealing with a worldwide crisis that is affecting every single person in multiple ways, it's very easy for our mind to go into fear. We're very susceptible to going into fear. When we're susceptible to going into fear, it's very easy for us to accept subconsciously the meanings that other people are giving to things. You want to understand that you have the ability to choose what you give meaning to and the meaning that you give it. And I caution everybody, like you have to kind of be militant about how you are viewing things and the information that you're taking in, so that somebody else's meaning that's negative right now doesn't actually get into your subconscious mind. You don't want that to happen, because then you automatically view things from whatever the definition of that negativity is. You'll view it that way for yourself, and you'll give it that meaning. Now, if we go back to the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, you have to understand that when we're giving something meaning, we're building an image in our mind. And all we really do as human beings is we constantly manifest. We're constant creators, and we're creating based on the images that we're holding in our mind, the feelings that we're holding in our body, which is causing us, to change frequencies of vibration very rapidly. And instantaneously, you could say, I want something good, but I'm giving something a negative meaning. And then we actually get something that we don't want in our life. So we have to be very conscious about this idea. And we have to remember that everything is relative. So right now, you have to ask yourself, what is relative to the situation that I'm in right now? And again, this is not for everyone. You have to look at your individual situation. I don't want to paint a black and white scenario for every single person. That would be in error. Everybody's situation is different. However, you have to think at some point, the way that the world was abundant and your life was abundant, say 4 or 5 weeks ago, may be very different than the way that it is now. And if you're a person that's affected by that abundance in this new way right now, you have to ask yourself, and you have to be careful not to compare it to the way that it was before, because then you make it worse. But you have to ask yourself this question in this moment: what is abundance to you right now? And I see people being very stubborn about this idea because they insist that it's going to be the way that it was before right now. Like, I sincerely hope and wish that it goes back to the way it was before, as far as channels of like distribution and opportunity for everybody. But right now it's not. And if you're thinking along the lines of the way that it was, you're also associating how things come to you based on the way that it was. If we remember that the way things have changed, abundance right now may be very different to the individual than it was 4 weeks ago. And that's very important to remember. Not only is it important to remember for the things that you want and desire in life, but it's also very important to remember for your own psychology, your own emotional well-being, and how that has a ripple effect, right? So it has a ripple effect on your family. It has a ripple effect in your business, your friends, on and on and on. And we may not understand that what's causing us to maybe go into some kind of a negative spiral would be that we're actually comparing the things the way they are now to the way that they were. It does us no good to do that. It absolutely no good. We need to understand the rules as they're changing currently, which are still changing rapidly. So we have to stay on top of the facts, but not get emotionally involved, and then understand what the abundance is right now. And remember, everything just is. That means you have the ability to give it meaning. You have the ability to determine what that's actually going to mean in your life and the quality of your life, which is fantastic that we actually have that power. All right, on to the next law. The next law is the law of vibration. The law of vibration is nothing more than the law of frequency. So I'm just going to draw some horizontal lines. I won't draw a lot of them. It's not necessary. But if you think of each one of these lines is a different frequency, and the description that I like to use for this is a simple traditional radio, okay? Like the old transistor radios, a regular radio that actually has an antenna, and it's bringing in the radio stations that are being broadcast through the air, not through a wire, okay? Radio stations in every city are broadcasting through the air, and they're broadcasting on frequencies, and they're sending a tremendous amount of information. Now, whatever room that you're in right now, there's many radio stations that are in that room with you simultaneously. They're in the same space at the same time. Now, if you don't have a radio that can tune into one of those frequencies, you can't hear any of what's being broadcasted in that room. However, it doesn't mean that it's not there. There's a tremendous amount of information that's coming through those broadcasting signals, those frequencies, but without a radio, you can't hear them. If I have a radio and I'm, say, looking to listen to the rock station, I'm currently just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. If I want to listen to the rock station in Charlotte, I have to turn the dial to the frequency that the rock station is broadcasting on, and I hear rock music. But I don't hear anything else. I don't hear jazz. I don't hear the blues. I don't hear talk radio. I don't hear sports. All I hear is rock. If I want to hear something else, I have to physically turn the dial to a different frequency in order to receive that information. It's all here in the same place at the same time. So the idea is that all information, everything operates on the law of frequencies in the universe. Everything has a specific frequency, including information, including opportunity, including individuals. So if I'm going to understand the law of vibration, the first thing I have to understand is that I operate on a specific frequency, and I operate on that frequency based on what I'm thinking. And the emotion that I attach to what I'm thinking. Okay? What I'm thinking, the image that I'm holding in my mind, the desire that I have around that image, and the emotion that I attach to it. I could have a positive image, and if I attach a negative emotion, I will get the opposite of what I want. I'm literally moving myself to a negative frequency. So in this case, let's just say a negative frequency goes downward, okay? If my emotion is fear, I will literally move myself to a lower or more base frequency, and I will bring in the equivalent of fear into my life based on that frequency. And I will think thoughts that are based in fear, because that is the frequency that is literally operating in my mind at the time. So I'm harmonizing myself with things that are on that frequency. All the good that you desire is going to be on higher and higher frequencies. And if we want to bring in the good that we desire, we have the ability to increase our vibration to a higher frequency so that we can think the thoughts that are in harmony with that frequency, which means we will bring in the opportunities that are in harmony with that frequency. We do that by making sure that our thinking is very clear based on what we want, and we have the corresponding positive emotions to go with it. And those corresponding positive emotions start off with gratitude. Gratitude is the conscious and emotional expectation of something that we don't yet have in our life. We have not manifested it, but by the idea of faith and understanding how these laws work, we can be grateful for something that's not here yet, because that keeps us in the positive expectation of it. What do we do? What happens when we do that? We literally increase our vibration, we change the frequency, we move up in frequency, and we start resonating with different thoughts on a higher frequency. What does that do? That gives us knowledge, information, and information to make different choices to bring in the good that we desire. So the law of vibration is very important to understand. It's very simple. It's not difficult, but you have to make sure that you put all the pieces in the right place to understand it. Last but not least, as we think of the thoughts and the ideas on a higher frequency, we also have to take the corresponding actions on that frequency in order to go with it. But your actions today may be very different than they were before, because we're operating with technology versus most of us are not going, to work, to a building, to a meeting, to a restaurant. However you would have operated before has changed. So you have to do it within the new set of rules, the new reality, so to speak, that we're actually in, so that you can move to the frequency and actually get what you want. But action is very important. It may be that you have to make phone calls. You have to ask people for what you want. You have to ask for help. You have to ask for referrals for people that can reach into their vast database of contacts to help you find solutions in the things that you want. You must take action. And one of the best ways to take action is direct contact, okay? Years ago, and I've said this for over 20 years, and it was taught to me by my mentor. The key to success is personal contact. So the more personal you can make that contact right now, the better it is. We need to develop relationships. We need to develop community. That's all on a higher frequency, okay? That means talk to somebody. Have a Zoom meeting with somebody. Have a Skype meeting with somebody. Be as face-to-face as we possibly can. Develop that relationship, right? Don't just send a blank email or a text. Really see if you can create something of a higher value through a higher frequency, and really get into that intimate conversation that brings actually more value. Be a real person with everybody, not just a kind of a benign text message or something. All right, next law. Next law is the law of polarity. You've heard me teach the law of polarity many times, so I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. The law of polarity basically says that everything is equal and opposite. Everything is connected. So when we have an idea, the one side of it is connected to the other. You can't, like here's this marker. You can't have a right side of the marker without the left being attached, okay? You can't have an up without a down. You can't have an inside without an outside. You can't have a problem without a solution. You can't have an idea without the possibility of its fulfillment or its manifestation. The law applies to everything. We can also use it for things like judgment, bad and good. But the truth is that everything just is. Now, we already went through this. When we perceive something as bad, we're giving it that meaning. And when we perceive something as good, we're giving it that meaning. So as we choose to think, we move ourselves to either the good side of this law or the not good side of this law. That then corresponds to the experience that we're actually having. So you have to look at the experience you're having and say to yourself, okay, I want the opposite experience. It has to be here in order for me to move from, say, here where I'm getting a negative experience to the other side where I'm getting a positive experience. I have to choose to think differently. And then when you do that, you can see how you've engaged all the other laws that we just talked about when you choose to think differently. But instantaneously, you move to the other side. Also, anything that you need or desire is already here, but you get it by moving to the other side of this law. So gratitude is very important. Why gratitude? Because it helps us move out of fear and it helps us move into possibility. That's the law of polarity, okay? The next law, the law of rhythm. Everything in the universe operates on a rhythm, okay? We have night and day. We have the rhythm of the seasons. We have our own individual body rhythms. Everything operates in a rhythm. Now, why is this important? If we use the law of rhythm to understand, say, good times and bad times, we understand that it's all happening in a rhythm, okay? Here's what we know. Nothing ever stays the same. So if we went from a good time to a bad time, what follows a bad time? Another good time. I explained in the 4-part series that I did that one of the interesting things about what we're experiencing is about every 20 years, we go through some kind of a major crisis. And after the crisis, what happens? We experience an extended period of good time. And then after an extended period of good time, we hit a major crisis, which we could also call a bad time. But why do we want to use this law? Because it gives us an understanding that everything is happening in a rhythm. And the reason everything happens in a rhythm is to bring things into balance again. So even though we might be in what we would call a bad time, you can think positively because you know good times are coming. What is this? This is an expectation. Now, there's something else that we can do. Because we have the ability to choose, we can actually create another rhythm inside of the rhythm that we're experiencing. That means it may be a bad time based on whatever you're experiencing, but because you're a creative human being, you can create an alternate rhythm for things so that even during the bad times or the down times, you can still create good times within these situations that are actually down. When I teach people about business and how to bring in money, I say, businesses operate on a rhythm. All businesses have a rhythm. They have a rhythm on how they make money. They have a rhythm on distribution. They have a rhythm on creativity. So if you were making money up here, but the basic cycle or rhythm of your business says that there is a period of time where you don't make money, you can create an alternate income source so that money is actually coming in when the other way that you made money is actually in a down cycle. We have the ability to do that because we can create different channels of distribution. We have the ability to change and think the thoughts that we want to think. So we literally can change the circumstances that we're experiencing. It's so important to understand these laws. Understanding these laws gives you the power and the knowledge to completely change what your experience is. Okay, on to the next one, the law of cause and effect. Emerson called the law of cause and effect. He said, the law of cause and effect is the law of laws. Now, why did he say that? Because the law of cause and effect basically states that every single thing that we experience as an effect in life has a cause, and every cause has an effect. How does that work with and through us as being creative beings? Okay, so we have spirit or energy that is constantly flowing to and through us as human beings. It is without form. It's only with knowledge. It's without form. As it flows into our consciousness, the thoughts that we choose to think determine the image that we hold in our mind. Then the emotions that we choose to give that image come out of the meanings that we give that image. And then if we have a corresponding emotion, we say that we're in integrity with the image that we desire. So we have a corresponding emotion with what it is that we're choosing, the image that we're choosing. That means shut off the news, stop letting negativity put images in your mind. You choose the image. So you have the image that you want, positive. You have the emotion that you want attached to the image, positive. Next is that we have the body. The body is the place with and through the law of manifestation takes place, and the only way that happens is through action. So we have the image that we choose, the feeling that we choose, and the action that we take creates the results that we desire, the circumstances that we experience, and the environment that we're in. Our environment consists of people, places, and things. Now, let's just say this is the first time you're hearing this, and you see with your eyes. We have 5 senses. We see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. All of those senses are designed to observe our external world, bring information into our internal world so that we can then determine what to do with it. So we see this out here. We see our results, we see our circumstances, we see our environment. Now remember, this is like if you heard this for the first time and you realize that the results that you're in, the circumstances that you're experiencing, the environment that you're in is not what you want in your life. It's not what you want to be experiencing. If you understand the law of cause and effect, you have to understand that what this is, results, circumstances, and environment, is an effect. What is it an effect of? It's an effect of how you're thinking about what you're observing. So that means that we decide this here is either good or bad based on the meaning that we give to this. So if we give a bad meaning to the results, circumstances, environment, then we have a negative corresponding image. We have a negative corresponding emotion. We'll take a negative action. And right now, a lot of negative action is just freezing up, people not doing anything. And then what we do is we keep creating the effect that we don't want. If we understand that we are the cause of the effect that we're actually experiencing, we understand that by changing the image, the emotion, and the action, we can change the effect that we're experiencing. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're like, David, I did not cause this virus. I did not cause me having to be at home. I completely agree with you. But you're the cause of what you do with the situation. And look at it like this. Every day of our life, things happen that we experience that we didn't actually cause. You may have a flat tire on the freeway, right? Somebody might run into you with their car. Somebody could steal something from you. Somebody could bless you with something. Good fortune could come your way. What we have the ability to do is to observe our world, and then we can change what's actually happening by changing the way that we think about it. All over the world right now, people are using this law of cause and effect to change a circumstance and the way that they respond to it by understanding that they can change the meanings that they give to it. And when we change the meanings that we give to something, we literally change the emotions that we have around it, and we see all the opportunity by a law of cause and effect that exist in our life. And there's infinite opportunity right now. It's infinite, right? We don't want to get stuck in the idea that there's no opportunity. There's infinite opportunity, but we have to look for it through the channels of distribution that are currently available. Okay, last but not least is the law of gender. I don't even need a chart for this one. So law of gender basically says two main things: that everything has a gestation and an incubation period, meaning that from the moment, we'll look at it like this: it takes about 280 days from the time a sperm and an egg come together before you have the physical manifestation of a baby. There's a specific time for a rose. There's a specific time for an oak tree. Every single thing that's created by the law of gender, which is male and female coming together to create something, has an incubation or a gestation period. And as we observe things, we can find out basically what it is. Here's what we don't know. We don't know what the gestation period is for an idea. That's what we don't know. But what we do know is that we can bring something into our life based on an idea faster if we focus on the law of cause and effect as it relates to the idea that we're holding in our mind. What does that mean? It means that as we experience the results of taking action on that image, we can determine whether or not the way we're thinking about something is working to bring in what we desire. If it's not working, we look at it as a test. It's just a result. We don't take it personally. We don't get emotionally involved in it. We understand, okay, I tried it this way. I got a result that I don't want. Let me try it another way, and then let me try it another way. Remember, Edison, it was like 10,000 tries before he got the light bulb to work. So he was persistent. He was focused. He was solution focused. That's what we want to do. We want to focus on the solution. And what we do is we take that law that the law of gender is like the law of gravity. There's no escaping it. Okay. So we want to focus on it so that we can enhance and speed up the law of manifestation and shorten the incubation and gestation period so that it does not take a long time. That's how powerful, by the way, the ability to choose is, that it literally allows us to condense time into a time frame where we get to experience something very, very rapid. It also reinforces the law of polarity with the idea that everything is here right now. So it's very interesting, because if you focus on cause and effect, if you focus on vibration, if you focus on gender, if you focus on relativity, you realize that all these laws work together so that you can think in a way to literally create the life that you want and the results that you want and the circumstances you want and the situation you want right now. All you have to do is remember that the rules that we're working within are different. The laws aren't different, and your ability to choose is not different. If you understand that, you can operate just as abundantly right now as you ever did, relative to the way that we're actually living right now. And it won't last forever. Listen to this, watch this podcast several times. Practice this every day. I guarantee you will change your results just about instantaneously. Tell us how it helped you. Talk to you soon. Bye. I hope you thought that this podcast was as amazing as I did. I really enjoyed doing that. I've been wanting to do that now for a couple of weeks to show people exactly how those laws worked. I really encourage you to listen to this several times. Really let it sink in and think about how it applies to your individual situation, and be sure to share it with individuals. I would appreciate it if you would like the podcast, if you would join our podcast, ask questions, if you will, and we'll talk to you really soon. Make it a great day.